Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail. Hello, this is your host, Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, and today this is episode 34. I'm so excited to be doing episode 34. So we've got 33 other videos that are at our YouTube channel, so you can go to YouTube, you can search Wild West Diversity, and you will see our logo there in the background. You'll see our channel. And you can go back and listen to all 33 of these interviews that we've already done about rodeo, about horse training, about decorating, about Western wear. We've got all kinds of great interviews in the hopper. So go back and check those out. If you're a podcaster and you like listening to podcasts, you can also find all of those podcasts that we've done because we pulled each of those episodes down. So check that out. If you like Spotify, if you like iHeartRadio, whatever your favorite podcast platform is, just put in Wild West Diversity or Liz Lawless. That's LizLawless, and you'll be able to find us. So we ask you to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Just click on the red button, and that way you'll get notified when we have a new video. And so, but we're here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Interviewing somebody, talking about the Western lifestyle, not only the past, but the current present day activities, and even into the future. So today I'm just very excited because we're adding a new feature. And so I want to bring on our partner here, our social media director and manager, Charles Flores Hearn. Charles is going to be here with us, and he is going to be our man on the ranch. So we're starting a new feature called Man on the Ranch. And so Charles is going to be sharing some good information with you. He's also going to possibly be going out and talking to other people. So he'll be bringing us some interviews out on the ranch with maybe farriers. So for those that don't know what a farrier is, that's somebody that shoes horses. Maybe it's a veterinarian, because obviously horses and animals need care. And so the person that takes care of an animal is a veterinarian or a vet. Maybe he'll be talking to some ranch owners or stock contractors. So Charles, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Hello, thank you for having me on the show.
You bet, you bet. So we're excited. And Charles, as most of you may already know, is the great-grandson of Cleo Hearn and the grandson of Harlan Hearn. So the Hearn family founded the Cowboys of Color Rodeo, and they're continuing that legacy. And Charles's great-grandson is coming in to help them, and he helps them put on the rodeo. They just did a rodeo last week at the State Fair of Texas, the Great State Fair of Texas. And so how'd those rodeos go, Charles, before we get into this other stuff?
Those rodeos, I went good. We had a good crowd. A lot of kids came out there, took some pictures, and then now they are going to go home, wanting to do some of my rodeo. So.
That's right. They're going to go home and say, "Mama, buy me a horse. Let me rodeo.
Yeah.
I want to be a rodeo cowboy." But that's why we're doing this show today. And here in a little bit, just a minute, we're going to actually be talking about horse care and how to do that. Because, the horses, it's not like buying a car. You can't just get in it and drive it. You got to have some understanding of the animal and what the animal needs and how to take care of that animal, how to approach that animal. And so we're going to be sharing some of those things about horses today. Charles is out on the ranch every day. He's out feeding and watering and bathing and taking care of horses. And so that they're ready when it's time for them to compete at the rodeo. You want them to be in the best shape they are. You take care of them. And so we're going to be talking about that. But before we do that, I'm going to do a shameless plug, one more shameless plug for our new little children's book. It's called African American Western Legends Yesterday. And this is 16 stories about historical characters, people that lived in the 1800s and they kept that Western legacy alive. They were a part of the settling of the American Wild West. And so, if you've got kids, you want to go out and get this book and share this book with them. And probably even if you're an adult, you may learn something that you didn't know before. So we encourage you to do that. The other thing, if you'll go to www.wildwestdiversity.com, we have a lot of our articles and we have these interviews, the print version of these interviews that we're doing. So you can always go there. You got to put your email in, but it's free. You just choose none. It'll give up an option because we do have a monthly fee. And if you want to support us, that'd be great. Just choose that monthly or annual fee. But if you want to, you can choose none, and that'll give you the free version. So, all right, Charles. So tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, and then I think we've got some little videos here that we're going to show, and then we'll kind of come back and forth and in and out and talk about some of these things, so people get a better understanding of what it takes to work with animals.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about how to saddle a horse, and first how to catch a horse. And yeah, because you got to catch one before you can saddle one. So we're going to be talking about that today. And for the other episodes, we're going to be interviewing people. So y'all know that there's a whole lot of stuff that goes in to the rodeo or a horsemanship or equestrian than just what you see on TV. So.
Right, for sure. Okay, so that's it. So first, like you say, you don't want to just run out and buy a horse, okay? Because horses are for different things. You want to look into it. You want to go. You want to look at horses. If you want a rodeo horse, that's different than buying a pleasure horse. That's different than buying a baby and training it. Buying an older horse that's a pleasure horse so your kids can ride it or you can learn to ride. I mean, all of that's okay and all of that's good, but you need to do the preparation. You need to do the upfront work to look for horses, to talk to people that have horses, to find out what it really takes, how much time, how much energy, and how much money. Because like you say, there's feed, there's got to wash them, you got to feed them, you got to give them medicine sometimes if they get hurt, because there's a lot of things that can happen to an animal out on a ranch and out in a corral or even in a barn or whatever. And so you gotta take some, you got to be smart about it. You got to get some knowledge, some education, and that's what we're doing here today. So let's play that first video, Charles, and you can kind of walk us through, like you say, how do you even catch a horse?
Hi, I'm Charles, and this is Man on the Ranch. This is how you catch a horse that really don't want to be caught. Follow me.
Yeah, so you see Black. I've been putting some medicine on him, so he's been like running away from me. And in like videos I see on TikTok, people like run up to the horse, but when you run, you see the horse is just going to run. So what you want to do is you want to go to your feed shed and get some feed, and you want to make sure the horse can hear that you have feed and he'll follow you into the stall. But you don't want to run to a horse that's just going to keep running. Because if you run up to a horse, the horse is going to feel the aggression.
Right, because they feel emotion. They're just like people. They have good days, they have bad days, they have personalities. Some of them like to be around other animals. Some of them don't. Some of them are a little standoffish. Some of them a little shy. Maybe a horse has been mistreated if it's an older horse, and they have all those memories too, just like we have. So you got to be careful. You got to be smart about what you do. But as Charles said, the first thing is when you're trying to catch a horse, you don't run at them. You don't chase them. You just, to catch them, you let them come to you. You figure out, you talk to them quietly and calmly, and you be calm, and don't get too excited, because if you're excited, then they're excited, because they pick up on your emotions and stuff, don't they?
Yes, they do. It's all about building a relationship with the horse. If you have a good relationship with the horse, then he'll go to you. And it's not like 2 days you have a relationship. It could be 2 months to 3 months when you actually build that first step of a relationship.
Right. That's right. So you got to spend time. It's like any relationship. You got to spend time with them. You got to spend time with these animals. You got to go out and see them every day. You got to take care of them every day. So it's a lot of responsibility, but it also is fun and get you outdoors, you're breathing air, and you're out in
Mhm.
nature, and there's nothing like you say when the animal begins to trust you and want to come up and sees you when you come up or you drive up, they come to the fence because they know it's you pulling up. They begin to recognize you, but that takes a
Mhm.
little time. So I think we got another video here, and this video I think is like you say, how do you actually catch them or get them to come to you? So
Because for me, feed works, and I just take it into the stall. As you see, the feed works.
Yeah.
The horses will start to follow you.
So the feed works, especially with Coco. She was kind of standing by me in the first video because she knew I was going to put some feed out there for them. And sometimes they know if you want to catch them, you'll use the
uh-huh.
feed. But it's feed, it's food. Anybody's gonna want to go to you if you got food.
Put some in Coco's
And so Coco, she's a little bit of an older horse, so we have more of a relationship with her. But
Uh-huh.
like I said, you never want to walk behind a horse, even if you have that relationship, because like people, we all have like a mood that we get in, so you never know. Especially with a horse, so never walk behind him. But you see Black is looking at the feed. You want to make sure that he can I hear the feed, because you can't just put feed down and expect him to know that you have feed in there. He has to see and hear the feed, and he's gonna walk in there once I put the feed down.
Comes in here, you close that gate and you get him.
And you never want to stay in the stall. You always want to put the feet down and walk out, because if you stay in there, he's not going to go in there.
And that's
Yeah, so
So
look at
he
that.
walked right on in.
He walked right on in, and you just close the fence or gate behind him, and yeah, so that's it. So you gotta take some time. You got to get to know these animals. You got to start building relationships with them. These are tips, and we're going to be sharing tips like this, at least once a month. And like you say, sometime it'll be these short videos, and Charles will kind of be explaining things to you about what it's like to be a cowboy, a real rancher, and to have horses. And sometimes, he's going to go out and talk to somebody else that has some expertise, maybe in an area that he doesn't have or that we don't know about. Because not all of us can be a vet, not all of us shoe horses, not all of us train horses, but so we're going to be talking to people like that and sharing those stories with you, in addition to continuing our regular interviews that we have with people like we did with Oba Babatunda a couple of weeks ago. He's an actor and a rodeo rider, was in his earlier days. Now he's kind of a horse whisperer, and he trains horses. And even though he's an actor and a producer and well known all over the world, he still loves horses and that Western lifestyle. So you find a lot of people like that. You find a lot of famous people. You find a lot of people that have their own ranches and their own horses and their own animals, or at some point in time in their life they had them. Maybe they had them earlier on, and then they come back to it, or maybe they wait until they kind of make it and get it and have the money, because it's not
It costs a
inexpensive,
lot.
is it?
It costs a lot. So you want to make sure that you have a good job, or people who will help you out. It's always about making sure you're in the right spot to get a horse. Because if you're not in the right spot to get a horse, then you're just going to turn that horse down. Like, is it just going to a drop? It's all about the feed and the care. So make sure you're financially stable, and then get a horse.
Right, right. Because we had a friend. We had a friend that they were given a horse, and they loved it, and they wanted to learn to ride, and they wanted to learn to do, but they didn't have a place to keep it, so they had to pay for a place to keep it. They had to find a corral, or they had to find and rent a barn and rent. And they basically finally had to give the horse away. They finally ended up giving it to their parents or their father-in-law or somebody, because they just couldn't take care of it every day. They were both working. They had kids, trying to go to school and take kids to school and pick them up and go to their activities. And it was just too much. So you got to be sure that you've got the time and the money to invest, for sure. So what's the next video I think we're going to look at is about haltering, isn't it?
Follow me.
Yes, so I have him in there. I didn't really close the gate because Cody decided to put his bull rope on that gate. So I didn't close it, but you never want to walk into a stall when his back is faced to you, because like I said, horses have moods just like people have moods, and you never know with a horse what their mood is going to be. but Black was okay with me letting him put the halter over him.
But
So
he
with
was
the
facing you.
This halter is a little bit
Yeah,
different.
so he's facing me. With the halter, you never like I want to like throw it over them. You want to just gently throw it over them. And this halter, it kind of really isn't a used today. This is more like an older halter, but I like these more because they fit on the bigger heads and stuff.
Right, right, great. So you see that. So like you say, like Charles said, you got to be gentle with the horses. You can't make any big, big moves or any
Yeah, don't
quick
make big
moves.
moves.
Big moves or quick moves, are not your friend when you're dealing with animals, and whether
Mm-hmm.
that's a horse or a steer or calves or bulls or whatever, you don't want to make big moves. You want to be real careful and real quiet and real easy and real calm and peaceful, because that keeps them calm and peaceful too, for sure. So that's it. So, we're going to be sharing these tips. We're going to be talking about these things because we want you to know. It's the same thing with the rodeo. The reason we have a Cowboys of Color rodeo, and the reason that Charles's great grandfather started those rodeos, is because he wanted people to know how to act. He wanted the young cowboys coming up to be able to perform in front of a large crowd, to be able to perform inside, not just outside, because a lot of most of the rodeo arenas are small. Maybe they seat 500 to 1,500 people in their bleachers, and it's outside and it's hot, and sometimes they have a cover over it. Sometimes it's just an open corral, where you're roping and where you're participating. And sometimes it's half covered and it's open on one end and closed on the other end. So there's just all kinds of facilities. There are all kinds of rodeos that happen around the country. But that's another thing. Maybe on one of these episodes, we'll talk about, what you have to do behind the scenes when you're a rodeo cowboy, because that's the same thing. You got to get set up for that too. You can't just jump out of the truck and run in the arena and be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work
pay
like
them
that.
entry fees first.
That's right. That's right. You got to pay to play, and we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about that a little bit more. But it is it's a wonderful lifestyle. It's great for families. It's great to get started, but you want to be smart. You want to understand. You want to educate yourself about things. So that you don't get into trouble, so that you don't have a problem. And then you feel bad because you got to give it up. You find a horse, get it, you like it. It's just like a dog, you get it, you get comfortable, it becomes part of the family, and then something happens, you can't take care of it. Well, you have a lot of guilt about that, if you have to give that animal up. And then if you got kids, they love those animals and they're upset and you're upset and everybody's upset. So you got to be smart about it and get educated. And so I don't know. Do we have one more video we're going to look at, or is that our
Now,
3 or
this is
4?
called a saddle pad.
We are saddling up. Okay.
Yeah,
wanna
so this
do
is the
with it,
saddle pad video. With the
what
saddle
I do
pad,
is I
many
hover
people
it
do it
over her
many
a few
ways,
times so
but
she knows
with the
it's gonna
horse, if
go
it's your
over her.
first time with the horse, you want to kind of like hover it
Fix it.
over the horse like
So
I
you want to
did,
make sure the saddle pad is right under
the
or
shoulder
right on
blade.
the shoulder blade. This is her shoulder blade right here. Stop cooking.
And every saddle pad fits different,
like,
so
"Oh,
you
I
can't
get
basically
saddled."
just go by
This
the
is me in
looks of it.
retirement.
So.
I know it. Because you don't want your saddle pad to be way over here, and you don't want it to be way up here. Right on the shoulder blade. And you could kind of feel for that when you go.
And you always want to clean your saddle pad off before you throw it over there. So.
Right. Yeah. Because things do get dusty. Things do get kind of dirty. And and I don't know. I think maybe there's one more Black a video with Blackie where you actually bring him out of the stall and talk a little bit about how you lead them around too, because that's another thing. When you're training horses, when you're working with horses, it behooves you to learn what to do with that horse, and what that horse likes and what that horse doesn't like. Because, like you say, any sudden moves or anything, they're going to be trying to get away from you. They're going to be trying to run away. Even once you got a halter on them, sometimes they want to go. They want to go somewhere else. And so you gotta learn those tips. You gotta learn those tricks that keep that keep you in control, because that's what you want to be, right, Charles? You want to be in control of what's
Yes.
going on.
It's like walking a dog. You don't want to. You want to be in front of the dog when you walk, and so they know you have control. With the horse, the halter.
All right, so I have him
See, so here's a video.
with the halter.
You see where my hand is? That's where you want to be. You have control when
Or
he
you don't
knows.
want to be all the way down here. You want to be right up here.
Yeah, so you don't want to be at the end of that road,
Right.
because then that horse is just going to take off and he's going to drag you. You want to be like right there, and your elbow is his brake. And so I'm checking for cuts every time I bring them out of the stalls. I check for cuts, because these horses sometimes they like to get cut up for fun. So
They're active. Yeah, they kick and jump and they move around. Yeah, they're not
And
static.
there's other animals out there too. So you always want to check for cuts, for bites and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But like I said, with that, you want to be like gently. You don't want to press on them. You want to gently do it. Gently cut them. I mean, gently check for the cuts.
Right. And see what's what. I'm sorry. They're calling you because they're watching you online. They're saying, Charles, we're watching you. You're doing a good job. We're watching you. So that's it. So like Charles was saying there, you got to hold the reins. You got to hold your hands close to the reins and close to the horse's head. So you don't want a lot of a lot of play in your rope, because that just gives the animal a chance to run off and to run and be somewhere else. And I don't know if you noticed, but Charles was also using his elbow there, and that was kind of a thing too. Charles, tell us a little bit about why you were doing that.
So I have the halter right here in the elbow. If I gently press down, apply pressure, then he'll stop. Your elbow is like his brake, and when you pull it forward, that's like his gas. So when you walk, you gently, I want to do it. Some people like a yank, and the horse neck will go up, and he'll start like running back, and they're like, why? Because you gently want to do it. With horses, you just want to take your time. With the elbow, you don't want to elbow him. You gently just want to apply pressure, and he'll stop. So.
Right. Yeah. So like you say, you got to treat these animals right, and we're going to have a video about that later on in the season when we're talking, because obviously with rodeo, the rodeo is kind of a whole different thing than pleasure riding and maybe show riding, show horses. That's a totally different thing. We had Doug Smiley on. He's a Tennessee walking horse trainer, and those are those high stepping horses that dance and they have the fancy long tails, and so you treat them and train them in a different way than you train rodeo horses. So if you've got a barrel horse is different than a calf roping horse. A calf roping horse is different from a steer roping horse. So you gotta know these things. You gotta get educated about some of these activities and about these horses. And then you can apply that, and then you can participate in this lifestyle, because it is a great lifestyle. It's a part of our heritage. It's a long history. There's a long history of African American, Hispanic, Native American, and Europeans who brought animals here. Obviously, the horse came over with the Spaniards. The first horses came from Spain, and they came when the Spaniards came, and when they discovered America and other places, and as they continued around the southern coast or around New Orleans and into Texas, some of those Spaniards got shipwrecked, and then they got into Texas. They were off the coast of Texas, and as we tell people at the rodeo, Estevanico was a black Spaniard. He was a Moor, but he was the slave. But he belonged to the assistant captain of the ship. Well, the captain was washed overboard. There was only 4 of them that survived, a couple of crewmen, the assistant captain, and this slave, Estevanico. Well, who do you think they sent in when it was time to go ashore? They kind of made it to the edge, but they had to go into the interior, into the woods, and see if there were any other people. Well, it wasn't now the captain of the ship, he's now the head guy. He's not going out looking to the trail. He's sending the scout or the slave in to look at things. So that's history that we share that a lot of people don't know, because a lot of people do know that Columbus discovered America, but they don't know that a black Spaniard named Estevanico really is the one who discovered Texas and New Mexico. And they were captured by Indians, and they were held for 5 or 6 years, with these Indians. But because he was a black Spaniard, they'd never seen a black guy before. Okay, this you have to understand. This is before 1500s. This was, this is very early on in this country, and so they didn't know who he was. They didn't know if he was a god. They didn't know what he was, but he learned to speak their language because he spoke multiple languages. He was a healer because he knew about herbs and how to take care of wounds and to take care of people that were sick. And so because he had these skills, the Indians began to look on him favorably, and they did not kill him and the rest of these guys because he could be helpful to them, and he was helpful to the tribe. And eventually they let him go, or they escaped or whatever, and they got down to into Mexico and found some other Spaniards. And so Estevanico got sold to the Viceroy of Mexico and Spain there. I mean, what was now what we call Mexico City probably, or somewhere close by, Veracruz or somewhere. And then the other Spaniard went on home, and he's the one that wrote the story that said I discovered Texas and New Mexico, because he wrote, he was wealthy, he was the captain, and he went back home, and Estevanico stayed here, and then carried other groups into the interior, into New Mexico, and was eventually killed by natives that were not as friendly as the first ones that he met. So lots of good history here, lots of good stories. We want you to know about these horses. We want you to know to make smart decisions, to get educated. Charles, what's your favorite thing about horses?
About horses? My favorite thing about horses is kind of like therapy because they're calm, they're quiet, but no one knows. Well, like a lot of people, like I know, like how powerful they can get.
Yeah.
Like they're like super like powerful, and they can also be like super quiet. And so that's like my favorite thing about them is like just to know like how much like a strength and like a history they have is why I like to go out there every day.
Yeah, so you go out every day and check on them and feed them, water them, and then saddle them up and ride. And so we'll do some other we'll have some other videos here, and we'll come back and we'll talk about, like you say, how do you get on a horse and off a horse, and where do you ride and how do you ride, and are there some other thing? If you're by yourself, that's one thing. If you're with other horses or with other people that ride horses, you got to be careful about that too, because that can like you say, they react differently to different situations and different stimuli. And like you said, if one runs off with you, I mean, they can really run a long way.
Yeah. And the reins are off and you have no control. You'll just be riding with them. And not every horse can ride with another horse. They're different. And y'all should ask the owner, can this horse ride with this horse? Or, because they're like our people. Sometimes we get like a mad like at each other, just like our horses. They'll get mad at each other too. So you always want to ask before you take those two horses out to a ride somewhere, because you might end up just coming back on foot.
That's right. By walking back instead of riding back. So you want to be careful about that. But well, Charles, we thank you so much. We appreciate this. We're really excited about this new feature, The Man on the Ranch. And tell us a little bit about who you're thinking about maybe going out and talking to. Have you got a couple of people in mind for like next month and the following month?
So I'm going to be interviewing my friend Dad Armando. He's been horseshoeing for over 20 years, and they're from Mexico. He used to be a trick roper.
Okay.
And he's friends with Jerry Diaz, and so I'm going to try to go through him to go over to Jerry Diaz and try to film them too. So that way we have like some cultural stuff in there and stuff that like not many people like I know about.
Right, for sure. So that's it. So this whole Wild West diversity, we're all about telling those rarely and untold stories of the American Wild West, the settling of the American West, and those stories that are continuing today, that different people are continuing this legacy. As Charles mentioned, we hope to have the Diaz family on. That's Geraldo Diaz, Jerry as we call him. But he's a fourth generation churro. His son Nicholas is fifth generation now coming along, and he's training horses and he's participating in the show. And his mom was a trick rider and a trick rope. She worked, she rode with the circus and Wild West shows and all across the Northwest. And so she's a great equestrian. And Jerry, obviously, they have, years and years and years, grandfathers, great grandfathers, great great grandfathers in this business. And as you can see, Charles here is the great great grandson of Mr. Hearn, Cleo Hearn, who's Mr. Black Rodeo, who's known all around the world for his rodeos and his contribution. And we're really excited that he's going to be inducted into the National Cowboy Museum and Hall of Fame in November on the 11th and the 12th. That'll be coming up here shortly, and that's in Oklahoma City. And that's the big daddy. That's the big museum. That's the nationally known museum where they induct people. And so we'll be very excited to be attending that. And we hope to bring you some footage from that as well. And then I'm really, really, really just delighted that next week we're going to be talking to actor Burton Gillum. Those of you who may know or may not know, Burton was, he got his start early on in Paper Moon with Ryan and Tatum O'Neal. He basically was a firefighter and he was off, and they had a casting call, and he went down and was standing around in the crowd, and they called him over and said, hey, we want you to be the desk clerk in this hotel where they're at. And I think he had one line, maybe he said hello or sign here or something like that when they came in to get a room. But that led to Blazing Saddles, and that led to him. He made more on that, one movie than he had made all year long working as a firefighter and boxing. He was the boxing champion for years and years in Dallas, Texas, down at the boxing arena, and I guess the lightweight, because he's not a big guy. He's tall, but he's not heavy. He's not a huge guy, and so. But he held the record for a lot of years and participates a lot and so certainly still supports the police and fire. But come back next week at 5 p.m. and see Burton Gillum, and we'll hear his backstory about what else happened to him and the other great actors that he's worked with over these last 30 or 40 years. And so great to be able to talk to him. Like you say, he's one of those kind of living legends and historic legends because he's still here. He fought a cancer battle, but he's still around and he's still participating and he's still doing great things, always helping people raise money for different stuff. So this has been your host, Liz Lawless, for Wild West Diversity. And Charles, thank you so much, Charles Flores Hearn, for being here with us. And he's our cohort in crime, and he's going to be out on the ranches finding out information for y'all and bringing it back to us. So we'll see you on the trail. We hope to see you next Thursday. If we don't, we'll see you on the trail. But always go back to our YouTube and subscribe and watch these videos so you learn something you didn't know. Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail.